Welcome, everybody, to the EMP podcast, the first episode. All right, today we're going to be discussing Ninja Scroll. It's a 1993 Japanese anime based on the historical Japanese fantasy. Film was written by Yoshikai Kawaraji. The film was co-produced between JVC, Toho, and Mavic, with Madhouse serving as the animation studio. Ninja Scroll was released June 5th in Japan, 1993, and has a English dubbed release through the Manga Entertainment in 1995. The film takes place in feudal Japan, following Kibagami Jubei, a mercenary swordsman who battles the 8 devils of Kimon.
Wonderful. Like Mario was saying, it's historical fantasy of the Japanese kind. But Pascal, I guess we'll do a quick synopsis of what's going on in this movie.
Okay. All right. By the way, the last person that just spoke is Ernest. The announcer was Mario, and I'm Pascal. Personally, I found this movie at a comic book convention back in the 90s, and my copy of it was called The Wind Ninja Chronicles. So that's what I've been calling it this whole time. So,
did you say Wind Ninja?
Wind Ninja Chronicles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the story takes place in the town of Mochizuki, Japan, centuries ago. An old man called Dakuan finds out that a force is plotting to overthrow the government. The group of men are led by a ninja leader called the Shogun of the Dark. They use 8 overpowered individuals called the Kimon Ninja to kill informants sent by the government to get information on them and to get gold they will use to overthrow the Japanese government. Dakuan finds the central character in the story, poisons him, and claims that he will provide him with money and the antidote if he helps him defeat these anti-government forces. This is, of course, Jubei. The Kimon ninja are led by Himuro Gemma. A group of ninjas from the village are sent to investigate a pandemic in the adjacent village of Shimoda. Shimoda is obviously very close to Mochizuki. Tesai, a Kimon ninja, kills them all except for Kagero, who is saved by Jubei. The plague was false and created by the Kimon to lure citizens of Mochizuki away from the areas the Kimon are set to meet the Shogun of the Dark to exchange the gold. The gold, as I said, is for the coup against the government. 5 years before these events, Jubei decapitated Gemma, who betrayed him and his men. So when Dakuan mentions Gemma as the leader of the Kimon ninjas, he is informed of his abilities to repair his body even after suffering decapitation. Even though Jubei killed Tesai when he saved Kagero, the Kimon want him dead only when he is suspected of being part of the Tokugawa shogunate, a group that supports the residing government. So to keep the rest of the story short, let's just say that Dakuan and Jubei team up with Kagero, who is unhappy with this arrangement, and who tries to be tough in spite of having some significant hidden weaknesses. But all 3 of them are trying to stop the Shogun of the Dark and the Kimon ninja. The meeting between the Shogun of the Dark, his men, and the Kimon does happen. The gold is put on board of the Shogun's ship. Gemma kills the Shogun, taking over the gold and the Shogun's men. He plans on using the funds to create a powerful ninja army and to rule Japan from the underground. So then Jubei sneaks on board, has a bloody, brutal fight with Gemma, and barely manages to kill him. Afterwards, Dakuan explains that getting Jubei and Kagero to meet was his plan all along. In the story, Dakuan reveals to Kagero at a moment when Jubei is away that her genetic resistance to poisons is the only antidote for Jubei's ailment. She actually has to sleep with him as a cure. So we could start discussing it here. Like I was going crazy to try to, because there's a real good scene where Dakuan speaks with Jubei, and he basically is used for exposition. So now when he starts talking about the events from 5 years ago, I got really like kind of confused. So was Gemma the leader of the group Jubei was in? Is that what happened?
Well, they were like in a group together. Like who was the leader? I think he was. They kind of hinted that.
Okay.
That he was, or at least like Jubei was like a subordinate to him in some way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was like, it kind of reminds me of like maybe like a Butch Cassidy and a Sundance Kid kind of thing where I don't know. You remember the beginning of the movie where Butch Cassidy comes back and the guy from the Addams Family, Lurch, is like the big cowboy that tries to beat him up to run the gang. It kind of reminds me of like maybe they hinted like something like that maybe was going on.
Okay.
To some degree. But the entire gang gets slaughtered, right?
Well, what happened?
I'm kind of hazy on the plot too, because like there's a lot of things that happen, and there's so many characters, and it's a lot to keep up with. But especially stuff like that, I kind of know what's going on, but like you said, I was not really. Well, they only devote a few seconds to that flashback.
I can answer that. So,
oh, here we go. Mario knows.
Yeah. So pretty much the deal is that the whole group was supposed to annihilate each other, so that way the secret of the gold doesn't spread out. So there was only supposed to be one survivor, the leader of the group, but he was decapitated by Jubei because Jubei survived, and he went after the leader, decapitating him, which later turned to the immortality, bringing the leader back.
Yeah. I think. Well, what I got is that I may be wrong here, but I think that Gemma was the leader of the group that Jubei was in.
Right.
Yes.
And one thing I know for sure is that Gemma ordered them to kill Jubei, and Jubei told them, "You've been tricked. You know, he's the real villain." And so,
right.
So this is his friend. Oh shoot, I had his name somewhere here, but his friend basically says the leader's word is law, so I have to follow his orders. So they jump and they try to kill Jubei, and Jubei kills them all and then kills Gemma. so
badass, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a shock to him 5 years later when he finds out that Gemma survived being decapitated. You know.
That's kind of a trope. I mean, I'm assuming the director and the writers were huge, much like a lot of like Eastern kind of like stories around that time period, and before, like influenced by the Western. And that's kind of like a trope, like the One-Eyed Jacks, you know, where you think one guy's dead and he comes back at the end of the movie in a gunfight, you know, well, it's like a showdown.
I'd say so, even especially with the ability to reincarnate, and they describe it not as a supernatural thing, but as a technique.
Right.
So yeah. That really brings it into martial arts and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. No, that's what's great about this movie, like as far as like a historical fantasy, because like, you know, maybe humans can really do this kind of stuff, you know, because there's nothing really, because they're called demons in the movie, right?
Correct.
But there's no like lore as far as like they're not actual demons. That's just what they would call people back in the day who had like special powers or could do stuff, or you know, that seemed special, you know, you know, somebody who survived a bunch of battles or something, like a Conan or Gilgamesh, or you know how they called like in the Bible the Nephilim, you know, or they're alluding to people like Gilgamesh, you know,
as if to instill fear into the general public about the clan, about the group of warriors.
Well, for sure. And some of these people might have been huge, much like in another Bible story, the David and Goliath, you know, where Goliath was unnaturally big, you know. I mean, some of these characters are just straight out of like, sort of like biblical texts, but they're probably coming from mythological figures we don't even know about. The closest we know is like what's in our Western culture. But that's what's great about watching movies like this, is that you really get a feel of the scope of other mythologies.
You do get that sense when you watch a lot of anime and you see patterns, as far as like what villains look like and what they do. Also, one thing I wanted to do back in the decades ago, I just never had the time to, but I wanted to read a book about as many mythological Japanese historical stories I could get my hands on, so I can get, an idea of where a lot of these ideas come from,
For sure. Well, there's a couple of great YouTube channels that are devoted to mythological characters, and they do have playlists that are all like Japanese or Chinese. So a lot of the stuff that I know about this stuff I got from them, because now they're short, like 8-10 minute like just descriptions of like I don't even remember the names of some of the stuff, but I recognize them. I know what they look like. There's the monsters that are like kind of bald that live in like lakes, and the parents would tell the children not to go swimming, because the monster will get you.
Yeah.
They're like, they have turtle shells. Do you know what I'm talking about? You see them a lot in animes every once in a while. They have a funny name, but anyways, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like basically, I certainly don't think that Dracula and Frankenstein and werewolves are something an average person in Japan is familiar with. That's like.
Well, I mean, Japan does have its own version of vampires and kind of werewolves, but they just don't call them that, and they have slightly different things going on.
Yeah, I'm just saying each culture has their own.
They do.
Mythological creatures, basically.
It's kind of crazy how that stuff spans the globe into like prehistory.
Yeah,
it's very interesting and stuff. This kind of stuff I'm really. One of the things that I didn't know that I stumbled across when I read the Wikipedia page for Ninja Scroll is that Jubei is actually based on a historical character.
Okay,
he's sort of like how we would think of. Well, Sherlock Holmes wasn't real, but sort of like a Sherlock Holmes character. He's been in so many things. More of like maybe like a Wild Bill or like Zorro. He's like Zorro, because Zorro is based on a real person, right? And now you see Zorro fighting Cthulhu and hanging out with Tarzan and shit. But Jubei is the Japanese equivalent, maybe to sort of like a Zorro character, which is kind of cool.
A little bit of detective stuff going on in there too,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why it works. It's got. One of the things that works for the movies is how complicated, convoluted it is, in my opinion.
It does show that there's a lot of energy and thought put into it. I think one of the problems with the movie is there's different titles used for the same groups of people, because when you first hear of Gemma, you have his first name first and then Gemma. And then the Kimon Ninja are sometimes referred to as the Eight Devils,
Right.
And so they probably, if they made that a little more consistent all the way through, it might be a little easier to...
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that just doesn't translate well, in Japanese. It's probably easy to pick up on, but like, there's so many nuances. It's hard to. These guys, the translators, have to there's this tightrope where has to be an accurate translation, but still have all the nuances of the language, And
a lot of things that have been done have been made with the audience in mind, saying that these people are the devils, which automatically tells the audience that these are the villains, the bad guys of the movie. It's more to make things very clear for the audience rather than
probably the translation more so than ever.
Yeah.
Because like I imagine if you're watching like, let's say, the Middle Eastern translation of this movie, instead of devils they might say jinn or genie, something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing that gave me an idea of the wrangling and wrestling that had to do with language is this is one of the this is some of the stuff Dakuan said to Jubei when they were on that little boat alone. So he asked him, "Are you one of the? Are you the ninja who killed the chief retainers of the Yamashiro clan 5 years ago?" And I'm like, the chief retainers. What? And it's just basically the chief of the men of the Yamashiro clan. Like retainers, I guess, is just another word for soldiers or whatever. So there's something that got screwed up in translation. So it's like that's another level of confusion.
Well, that's like a language that like detectives use, like the Pinkertons and stuff like that, old school detectives. So in some ways, the what's the name of the clan that the girl works for? I mean, those guys are kind of like the equivalent to the Pinkertons.
There you go. Well, that's another example. Because at one point they refer to them as the Mochizuki ninjas, and that's just the name of the town. So that's
where they're from.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that kind of happens with gangs. Gangs have like a lot of different
later on, the Koga ninja is what. So it's like you got to remember that.
Yeah.
So it got confusing, and then of course you got the leader of the Koga ninja is called the Chamberlain. You got to remember that too. It's like, and then of course Gemma takes the form of the Chamberlain and kills Agero later on. So.
That's the big twist at the end.
Yeah, so.
I kind of saw it coming.
Yeah,
but no, just kidding. But it's cool. Well, one of the things I really love about this movie is they like every 10 minutes you're like, what the fuck, Especially like I saw this last time I saw this movie. I was probably maybe 16, 17, so it's been a minute.
Yeah, we were all very young. Saw this.
But like even I knew kind of I remember kind of parts of the movie, but I didn't know what was going on at all. So watching it again, I was like, oh shit! That's like even like the first sequence where he beats up some guys on the bridge.
Yeah.
I watched that over and over again like 5 or 6 times because like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Well, here's the thing that I remember years ago. A friend of mine, he made his mom watch Keras with him, which is another anime, and the ninja warriors at the beginning, they transform into they're flying in the air, and see, it's been a while since I've seen it, but they're flying in the air. Then they start battling each other in the air. Then they transform into spaceships, and they start shooting each other. And his mom didn't know what the hell was happening. And it's okay to. You could kind of get away with that with like someone like me because I have the eye for it, But like you said, like at the beginning of this movie, Ninja Chronicles, the 3 guys that Jubei fights, so he beats up 2 of them first, and the third one is a little person inside a kind of extended body, like made out of.
That's what I thought happened. It was like, did that just happen?
Yes,
it's crazy.
Exactly.
Like, he's like wearing a diaper and he has a gun.
Yes,
and the gun slides off.
It's not a diaper, unfortunately.
Oh, you know what I mean. He's wearing his underwear. You know what I mean?
Shubei's got one of those too when he's in the water. So it's like So that's the problem with. Ironically, the same thing with the first 2 Transformers movie. And I hate to put this in there too. The last movie, Kingslave by what we call Final Fantasy. It as far as the concept of style over substance, it's phenomenal. I mean, but I don't want to go too far in this tangent. But one of the powers that a lot of these guys have is they have kind of like a small machete. And what they do is they throw it like maybe, 40 yards in front of them. And then they disappear and they appear where the machete is. And when that first happens, you can't even keep up with what's happening. Then at the end, you have giants doing the same thing. It's like, and you if you have the kind of eye that I do when you could watch this 2 or 3 times in a row, it's no big deal. But if you want to bring in like a wider audience, you're confusing people with stuff like that,
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a very niche kind of like genre. It's not for everybody. You shouldn't try to make it for everybody.
You know what? The reason that I think it's important to make it, I guess the term idiot-proof is a term I could use here, is when you have when you want a broader audience, because. Like let's take Batman: The Dark Knight, for example. I mean, that movie definitely easily appeals to more than just comic book people. And so I think anytime you do a piece of entertainment, it's to your benefit to try to be as comprehensive as possible. And like you said, I mean, you're kind of into this stuff, and you were confused.
Yeah. Well, you're at the artist's discretion. Like, there's two types of artists. There's craftsmen and there's artists. There's some people who want to make a good movie that everybody's gonna like, right?
Yeah.
Like Steven Spielberg. He wants to make a movie that everybody's gonna like. And there's some people like David Lynch who makes movies that he thinks are really, really important. I mean, he's trying to say something, and they're obtuse as hell, and they're supposed to be. His whole point is, I want you to be a detective and figure out what's going on in this movie. You know what I mean? I dare you to watch this movie and figure it out. That's his thing.
Well, here's the thing.
It depends on what the approach is.
Well, here's the thing though. Like one of the coolest things I've ever seen was, as complicated as Inception was, when I was watching it in the theaters, I could see that everybody understood what was going on, as complicated as it was. The problem,
I don't think I think you're giving everybody too much credit. There's some people that were like,
well, there was a scene where something pretty complicated happened, and I could tell by the laughter that everybody.
In the theater you're in. Okay.
Yeah, they got it. The problem is when then he went and done. He did Tenet, and that is just too complicated.
Well, I mean, and filmmakers don't want to make some people like that, like Christopher Nolan. I'm not going to compare him to Stanley Kubrick, but like they want to up the game. Those guys don't want. I mean, they especially that guy considers himself a real artist. Like he really doesn't want to make movies for dumb people. He wants to make. He wants to make enough movies to make enough money to make the type of movies he wants to make. You know what I mean? He's one of those. That's what George Lucas said he was going to do, and he never did it. But he's one of those guys, Like,
well, I'm kind of fine with that, but at the same time, and I also really do like Easter eggs that make you want to watch the movie again. But when you get into the Dark Knight Rises and Tenet, where people are talking and you can't understand what they're saying,
well, that's a whole new thing. Yeah,
that's a flaw. I mean. Mario, you read the that script that I wrote. I mean, I would like to think that was pretty comprehensive.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, because there was a lot going on in there, but I did my damnness to make sure that it was not overly complicated.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this earlier. I think specifically with Christopher Nolan, he does that on purpose, and I think he's even said that before. Maybe. I might be making that up, but I mean that's a choice, and like one of the things, like you were saying before, things that make you rewatch stuff. This is one of the things some people choose to do to make you either rewatch stuff or at least get like the Blu-ray or the DVD and watch it with the subtitles, which is, I think, what he really wants you to do is watch these movies with the subtitles. Because
that, or just watch all the YouTube reviews on it.
Yeah. Both. He wants you to do both.
I guess.
So going back to the intro bridge scene, the details that might have thrown everybody off is how the little man in the bodysuit, using the bodysuit as a puppet, was very confusing because the hand that shot that was a pistol was skin tone. It was realistic. So it didn't give you any clues that something was off, that it was a wooden mechanical hand, it was a prosthetic. It was meant to look as if it was realistic. We didn't get an impression that something was off until we saw the hole of the gun nozzle in the hand. And also when Jubei sliced the front of the puppet body, revealing a wooden skeleton underneath the clothing when it split apart, and the little man jumping out. So before the actual slice, there was no clues to make us think that something's off. It was off in the moment as it was happening.
It's too cool.
So it can be very confusing because it doesn't give you clues.
But I'm into that. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what makes you want to. That's why I rewatched that opening scene like so many times, and I think that's a sign of Yeah, some people could say that's like bad, like storytelling, and in some sense, maybe it is. If you're trying to make just sort of like a cookie cutter kind of movie, but like there's so much going on, just not in the plot, but in the actual animation between frames.
I think you can show that scene, that the opening scene, but you have to put your cameras in a way that makes things more clear. It's like the Transformer thing, like in the first two.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a mess. No, I think the beginning of Ninja Scroll is beautiful.
When you want to,
I like it because I didn't know what was going on. Because that's what really would. That's what the director wanted you to have, because this guy's so badass. He's like even if you can see what's going on, you can't tell what's going on. It's like, what the fuck just happened? Like, he's so good with a sword. That's what he's trying to say, you know? It's like seeing the gunslinger just like shooting everybody's gun out of their hand. You're doing like in Blazing Saddles, like when Gene Wilder does that. It's the exact same thing, you know?
It's such a beautiful thing when you don't have to show every single action, explain everything visually, but just give you clues and hints of what's going on, and letting the mind putting everything together. Like Jubei never having to be shown to him swinging his sword, but the path of his blade cutting, as if he can be standing anywhere, and his slice can reach any distance, giving you even more mystery, more supernatural quality to his skill.
Well, no, that's the thing. His skill, it becomes almost supernatural.
Yes.
He's so good at what he does. Just like I think everybody in the movie, you know, there's it's not really supernatural. Everything can probably be explained in science if we really wanted to.
I don't think you could jump into shadows.
Wormholes.
Again,
well, to go back
to
the
the shadow thing, because I thought the same thing too, because like it's very kind of almost realistic to the guy with the shadows, but that's kind of a metaphor for being a ninja, being able to, like Batman, to be in the shadows. And that's what I took it as. I thought the movie was like metaphor. This is like a tale. This is like King Arthur. You're listening to like the Holy Grail. Everything's a metaphor, you know. And metaphorically, this guy is such a good ninja that like he can hide in any shadow. He just pops out of him, you know. It's like something you'd hear in like a pop song, you know, like a hip hop song or something like that. You know, this guy is such a badass. He can hide in any shadow, just kill anybody. You know what I mean?
Well, the supernatural powers that all the devils have, they range on the supernatural. So because they already crossed that line, they can just take it to the extreme. Go ahead.
Because let's see, the Shijima is the guy in the shadows. Yeah, the guy multiplies himself by 12, so that's.
Oh, right, yeah. He reminds me of the Mirror Master in the Batman comic or the DC comic.
To go back real quick to the opening scene, the thing that I guess in a sense supports my argument is that when I first saw the movie, when Jubei meets Tessai for the second time, because Tessai, because he's ordered by Yuri Maro not to go after Jubei after he pierced his eye, but he later on, obviously, you know, when he broke through the wall and tried to kill him, he was breaking that order, you know. So now during that fight, the first strike that Jubei does against him.
I'm sorry. Like, is this the first guy? Which guy is this?
The stone
guy.
I'm sorry. Tessai is the guy with the rock skin.
Okay. Well, I thought his skin falls apart because what's her face poisons him, right?
Yes.
But during that fight, before his skin started to fall apart, and after Tessai like punched him in the stomach like 4 times. So he punches him in the stomach and he throws him across the street or whatever. So he's about, let's say, 15 yards away. So because of the problematic camera angles which happened at the opening scene also, with Jubei's sword fighting, Jubei swings a sword and his power is that the sword slice, you know, travels, you know. I didn't get the sense that he was far away from him, because Tessai punched him in the stomach and he flew like 10 yards away, and so he swung. He pulled the string on his sword, got the sword in his hand and swung it, and it sent like essentially like a laser thing back at Tessai. When I first saw that, I thought he was real close to him, and he kind of tried to cut him on his chest, but his power is that he could do that from his distance. So the camera angles there got me confused. But
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying his power, he does like sort of the guy from Zelda, or the guy from Thundercats does the same thing.
Yeah, a distant sword swing, that travels.
Huh.
And I didn't get that. The first time I saw that, I didn't get that sense. But he's far away from Tessai. They end up.
Yeah, we were just looking at it. Yeah, he does look. It's a very style. It could either be super stylized or that's his super. That's. I think with these movies, it's like folklore. So everything, I don't think everything. If this was a real story, you couldn't take it literally. It's sort of it's what they call an unreliable narrator.
It's a little bit of a genre to it, basically.
Yeah. Well, which is I think a tradition. Yeah, and tradition definitely with a lot of old stories.
Well, my favorite of all time anime is Vampire Hunter: The Bloodlust, which is done by the same company.
It's done the same guy. Yeah, this guy did that movie and Wicked City, which are two kind of like.
Madhouse Studio doing the artwork again, and
he did Lensman, right? One of his first ones was Lensman, which I don't know, which was a great book series. And I haven't seen maybe we should add that to the list to talk about stuff. But Lensman, is like the original book is the Green Lantern is pretty much a ripoff of the Lensman, and a lot of other anime, Robotech and
well,
Voltron and etc.
The thing that both movies have that in common, one drives me nuts, is the fact that because I as a character on screen, I thought Tessai looked amazing, and in Vampire Hunter D, the big guy, I forgot what the guy's name is, but he's one of the good guys. They get rid of those characters right away. Tessai dies right at the beginning, and the big guy in Vampire Hunter: The Bloodlust, he's got this huge hammer. He gets killed right away. But both movies have a guy who jumps into the shadows.
Yeah. What was there was the Batman villain called he got the top hat from the Flash and Starman. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know. Is
that a guy who jumps in the shadows? I'm not.
He jumps in and out of the shadows. That's
okay.
The Shadow King.
I'm not too familiar with DC characters as much as Marvel.
Yeah, DC's got a rich history. They bought a lot of property from early stuff.
Yeah.
I do have to say this, is that Jubei's sword technique, the old man's ability to change his skin color like a chameleon to adapt to his environment.
Yeah.
All of these movements that can be seen and can't be seen, the supernatural powers, the unrealistic aspects of Ninja Scroll, it all adds to the suspense and the interest in the actual movie, because when nothing makes sense, when everything's a mystery, the more involved you get into it, as long as it doesn't offend your senses. And it seems to intrigue us based on the style that it works. And it keeps you engaged into the story because you don't know what's going on, but it looks so cool. It's so visually done in quality that you just want to see more. You want to see what else they can do, what else is going to be shown. And it just keeps building upon itself with all these things, like the Stone Man, the man that can't be killed because his skin is stone, and throwing his weapon, knowing when to throw it to hit an exact target. Boom! It boomeranged back to his hand. The fearlessness of his blade, having confidence in catching it because of his stone skin. It adds so much interest in his superhuman strength. And all the devils, their confidence and their actual powers, it all just sucks you in.
Well, that and the artistry behind it, the costumes are beautiful, and the fight at the end has some absolutely amazing animation. I thought the final way that Jubei took out Gemma was a little odd with his head slamming, but then again, he was wearing the pendant that Kagero. So it's
part was one of my favorite parts, actually. Yeah. There's some really silly parts in this movie that I thought were hilarious. And that's what I thought too. It's because she's wearing the pendant. It's like at one point I thought, oh shit, this is the only movie I've ever seen where a guy actually kills the main character with just like headbutting them to death. It was hilarious.
With these type of movies, it seems like every single shocking part in the movie is actually everybody's favorite movie, because this movie decides to go there, go where nobody will go in regular movies, because it's a cartoon, because it's an anime made for adults. They can go as far and as brutal as they want.
Well, not just in that too, because like the brutality is awesome, or it's over the top. It's fun,
and it's done with passion.
It's
yeah.
It's like reminds me of the Shaw Brothers movies, or like Kill Bill, that Tarantino thing. But some of my favorite parts too are just like stupid lines, but which might lose something in translation. Like at one point, the ninja girl and Ninja Scroll guy, whatever his name, Jabei, then they've been arguing the whole movie. You know what I mean?
Well, she's trying to put up this front that she's tough and everything.
No, absolutely. But like, they've been bantering this whole movie, and at some point, the one thing that he says where she takes out her knife is like, "Fuck you, I'm about to kill you." He's like, "You have no heart." And she's like, "Fuck you, I'll stab you." It's like, oh, that was over the line. That was too much, which was hilarious. I cracked up.
Yeah. Also, the thing we got to keep in mind is that the Ninja Warrior, the female Ninja Warrior, she was traumatized from seeing her comrades slaughtered. Not only that, but the leader of her clan, over Ninja.
Absolutely. Who knows what relationship they had before the movie started?
Having his arms rip apart, they probably had respect for each other. They probably looked up to each other.
I mean, she couldn't form relationships because she was cursed.
Yes, she couldn't. And it was the guy's name was Hansa, and I think like when they met up with him finally, or his remains really, I think he was trying to walk off the edge of the cliff to kill himself. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Zakuro exploded him basically.
Yeah. So Kagero, the whole movie, she was, like I mentioned earlier, she was very traumatized from all the horror she's seen, plus a rape attempt, all of it combined.
Well, she actually gets raped a couple of times, right?
So that mixed with seeing horrific images, she was very fragile, breaking down on her knees, crying in private, because she's had no time to process. The mission continues. She's got to go back and relive her traumas and be around the people that traumatized her. So she would be very fragile and weak, but trying to stay strong and push her fragile tendencies to the side.
Oh yeah, she said a couple times that I think she was definitely ready to die for her cause.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
When a person has basic things taken away from her that makes us human, that makes us social animals, like the ability to breed, experience love and romance and sex. When those things are taken away from a person, and not by their own choice, but because of necessity or circumstance. Yeah, it makes them very weak and very
vulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she kind of reminds me of her dynamic of a Rogue from the X-Men. Yes. How, and especially in the cartoon.
Yes.
Where like she couldn't really form a relationship because she'd just kill anybody she really touched.
Well, they portrayed that pretty well in the very first X-Men film. Yeah, they did that.
I agree. No, it was focused. There was a huge whole plot, story arc about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like in Ninja Scroll, she got to experience something human at the time of her death, basically. So it was that was kind of sad, and they portrayed that pretty well and stuff. And
I got a couple of vibes where like parts of this movie reminds me of stuff which can't possibly have been influenced. Like for instance, the old guy, like he's the CIA guy. I'm talking about this. Dakuan. Right. Yeah, like at some point when I was watching him and his facial motions and like what he's into, it's like, man, he looks exactly like a fleshed out Rick design from Rick and Morty. You know what I mean? Because like he's drinking all the time. He's always like, you know, got the little bit of spittle, and like he's got the big eyes, and just kind of like has the same kind of like reactions to stuff, you know.
Well,
which there's no way that these things could be connected. But I was like, man, this is just, or maybe they are in some way. But stuff like that, I got a few times.
What it reminds me of, like back in the late 80s to early 90s, almost every weekend night, like Saturday night or Friday night, like some like one of those limited channels, they would play like old ass martial arts films. Mm-hmm. And with the villains, there was always some scrawny little weasel old man that was always like a big
yeah. Well, he looks like the guy from Drunken Master, the one movie, you know, from the first Drunken Master.
Yeah,
that guy always shows him. He's like a Yoda kind of guy.
Yeah,
which is great. I mean,
just conniving back there.
Yeah.
So.
Like, you don't know if you can trust him, but like at the end of the day, he's kind of like teaching the hero a lot, you know, how to deal with shit, you know.
Yeah, there was a guy like that in Shaolin. What was it? I got to think of the movie now. I got to think about it. It was one of those really funny martial arts film in China, Shaolin Hustle. I think that's what it was. And the little weasel guy that was just like that. It was a guy like with a big mouth, but he was just a very weak little weasel.
I feel like I've seen them. Is there anybody famous in that I would know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I'll have to check it out. I love movies like that.
It's really good. I haven't seen the Shaolin Soccer yet. There's Shaolin Soccer, which I haven't seen, and the one I have seen is Kung Fu Hustle.
Right.
Yeah, and it stars Stephen Chow and UNQ, and they're not known. They're not very popular as far as I know. It's not like Jet Li's in here or anything else. Yeah, but that's a great movie. I should watch that actually.
Well, we could add it to the list.
Duck Kwon had a lot of personality to him. He was a very mischievous, mysterious character. It was very confusing to us seeing a very old man being a ninja, being the only survivor of his clan and continuing his mission. He does have a lot of...
Is that what's going on? I thought he was working for the government.
He was, but his group that was sent in to investigate, all of them were slaughtered by the devils.
The Kimon, the devils, yeah.
Yes, and if I'm not wrong, at the very end of the movie, he actually reveals himself to be a very ancient old man, having a very long lifespan.
That's what they always say.
Yeah, any type of old man that you see, they're usually portrayed to be older than they actually are, to give themselves more mystery and legend to them. But
although back then you're lucky to live past 35, so you know, and you look pretty haggard around 40.
But like I said earlier,
he could have been 40. No, I'm just kidding.
The more mysterious, the more intrigue you have in the characters, because this is a very adult movie. It touches on so many different things that normal cinema would never touch on, like Yuri Maru having sexual relations with the leader.
Oh yeah, that's
Gemma.
an interesting point. Yeah, that's just, I mean, wow, for 1993.
Exactly. The whole love circle drama between all the characters fighting for relationships and being superior.
Well, the thing was, Gemma was sleeping with Yuri Maru and Benisato.
Yes.
And when Yuri Maru offered herself to, wait a second, it was, let's see here. When Zakuro offered herself to Yuri Maru and he refused her, that's when she started like really hating him, which is why she killed him at the end, basically. You know, that was kind of cool because it added another layer. You know, like the villains definitely don't get along well together. You know,
Love and hate triangle that they keep forming to keep you more interested in creating more dynamic, where nobody trusts nobody anymore. Anybody can betray anybody anymore. At any time. So it adds more drama and more action to all the scenes.
Yeah, because the villains don't have very complicated motivations, so the complexity comes in with the character development, and which was done well. Yeah. So it's a pretty damn good movie, and I've been a fan of this studio for a while. I believe they did. They did one of the episodes, no, two of the episodes of Animatrix was Program and World Record.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Were phenomenal. And they did Redline too. And Redline, unfortunately, is a big galactic space race circus, but the animation is beyond belief. I think it is because most of these animated films are not the traditional like Disney frame rate, which is I think like 24, 27 frames per minute. I think it's like much less than that,
Oh, really?
I think Redline is actually fully rendered. Yeah. So you guys, I'm not even quite sure. We should discuss that because it's style over substance, Yeah. But So that's this studio is fantastic. I've actually I don't know what they've done lately, but I should probably look that up.
They are still very relevant. They still continue to work on animes, the episodic ones.
Okay.
They worked on One Punch Man.
Oh, okay.
They've worked on a lot of. I wish I could name more, but I haven't been keeping up with all the anime because there's so much coming out and there's so many other things to do, and you kind of fall behind. You fall really far behind when you choose what to do with your time in life. But getting back on topic, onto the movie. So after the love triangle, set up for the love triangle.
Yeah.
We have Jubei fighting for his life, being hunted by the devils, and the amazing scenes like Tessai grabbing Jubei's face and imprinting his face into his hand, and then digging his hand into the dirt to give a impression of Jubei's face, so then the other devils can hunt him down.
Zakuro is the one that saw that face down there, yeah.
Genius move. I mean, because if it wasn't for that, there would be very little clues as to how.
There's so many little things in this movie. I mean, and that's literally like 2 seconds.
Yes.
And it was just like, because that's another one. Like the beginning, it's like, what's going on? What happened? And I kind of rewound it. It's like, oh yeah. It's like,
well, that's the reason why. That's the reason why when I watch these movies, I have to find a Japanese version with subtitles, because even though there is some of the traditional meaning lost, even with subtitles, you're probably better off than with the dubbing.
Yes.
Because I've seen some. A friend of mine had it was a Jean-Pierre Jeunet night, which is like movies like City of Lost Children and Delicatessen and all that stuff, and even
Alien 4.
we watched the subtitle stuff, and even in there was a scene where I was the only person laughing in the whole room because the subtitling did not express correctly the humor in the scene, and so they had to pause it and I had to explain to them what the hell I was laughing at. So, and then you lose a lot more with the English dubbing.
Luckily, despite the dubbing, which I actually thought the dubbing was good enough where you couldn't really spot any inconsistencies or any type of problems in the dubbing.
Okay.
But that was my impression of it. But lost my train of thought.
There's a couple of things I made a couple of notes, specific notes that I thought were really cool. Now, since I haven't seen this movie since I was like, maybe last time I saw it was 18, maybe 20. So yeah, it's been a long time. And there's a couple of things I know now that I didn't know then that I picked up on. It's like, wow, that's super cool. Like, at one point, I guess it's I pulled it up, Mario, and I'll send you an image, Pascal, later, or point the camera to it. But you can just like Google it. At some point, one of the characters, I think it's a lady, like maybe 20 minutes into it, is using a Japanese Inkstone, which is something you can still get and something that people still use for like calligraphy or drawing, like a lot of those ancient Japanese paintings or like illustrations we see where they use these. And they come in different colors. Not just that, but it's basically.
I'm sorry. What is she doing? She's doing artwork.
No, I'm not really sure what she's doing. She's probably going to write a letter. Oh, and this brings me. I wanted to mention the Inkstone. There's an Inkstone in this movie, which is cool. I think that's the artist referencing this. He's like, oh yeah, I know. You know what I mean? Because like only somebody who's really into art would. Because I've done more research between now and then. So seeing the Inkstone, because it's like the guy putting his face in impression. It's like a couple of seconds, like blink and you'll miss it kind of moment. But she's doing something. But
she's writing a note to her subordinates, to her leaders, informing them on the updates of the situation.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think we ever get to see what she's doing, but that's probably like the actual note. But that brings me a second. It made me think, where's the fucking ninja scroll in this movie? It's called Ninja Scroll. Where is the scroll of ninja? And like, that's at first I thought it was maybe this scene, but I don't know.
Well, that's just it, dude. That's just it. That's why I prefer to call this movie Ninja Chronicles. Yeah,
Ninja Chronicles or Wind Ninja is what you said. But the only other time in this movie that I saw, because after I saw this scene, I was like, I'm gonna keep my eye out for scrolls now. I completely forgot it was called Ninja Scroll. The only other time I see the scroll is like when the lady ninja gives like she writes something down and gives it to like a bird and it flies away. Yes. You know, it's very like Lord of the Rings. That's the only other ninja scroll I remember seeing at all, or even mentioned of a scroll in the entire movie. But I need to rewatch it again, maybe, because
there was definitely no scroll. It had nothing to do with scrolls. It seems to have just been a convenient, cool sounding thing to name it.
I don't know. I mean, there's something in Ninja Scroll. Well, I mean, somebody picked Ninja Scroll.
Unless it was as if a reference to documenting the events of ninja actions.
Well, let's see. It goes back into the historical fantasy. This seems like something a real. It's like what Tolkien is doing with Lord of the Rings, where he's trying to do a historical fantasy, like something that's kind of historical. Because like even Bilbo Baggins, he writes it down as it really it really happens, right?
And everything was documented in scrolls, so right. That's what it's referencing.
Well, it might just have been because again with the loss in translation and trying to come up with a westernized title for a Japanese movie, you get run into problems
for sure.
And I think I rightfully so. The Wind Ninja Chronicles is not something that rolls off the tongue, but Ninja Scroll is not that great of a replacement either.
It's not that bad. It's not that better,
Yeah, it's not, So, and then, and actually, the entire name is Jubei Ninpacho The Wind Ninja Chronicles. So
they should have just called it that.
Yeah.
The thing about Ninja Scroll is that, again, it might make you think of what is a Ninja Scroll, how is it relevant to the story. It might just ask a lot of questions before you even watch the movie. You might have expectations and questions, a lot of mystery when it comes to the title Ninja Scroll. You're almost expecting something about scrolls, something to push the narrative, and even though it doesn't pan out, but at least it drives a lot of mystery pre-watching the movie. So maybe it was intentional to get people to invest in because it's mysterious. They want to explore and see what the Ninja Scroll is, even though that might not be mentioned or explored on at all in the actual plot.
For sure. I feel like it's calling the movie Hieroglyphs.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be about Egypt and some Pharaoh shit,
Without actually showing any which is implying
in
more
that
time
case,
period.
well, in that case, I think a word like archives would have been a little better. You know, maybe
The Ninja Archives.
Not as appealing to the ear.
No, because
Ninja Scroll-
most people are going to be like, "What the fuck's an archive?" I guess most people
Yeah.
are like, "What's
Yeah.
a scroll?"
and exactly, to the Western audience and other audiences, we're not familiar with scrolls, so it adds more intrigue to us being like, what are scrolls about? What's in the scroll?
Well, there's probably that video game Elder Scrolls are out,
yes.
and like whoever was about the rights was
Yes.
like, "Hey, this is making money. These call it Ninja fucking
I
Scrolls."
mean, scrolls are not limited only to Japan and
They're like
Asia.
they're like nerds love scrolls.
Yeah, it's-
Let's call it Ninja Scroll.
medieval times and pre-medieval times, people used to use scrolls because there were no books yet. It was only one sheet of paper rolled up scrolls.
Like a bunch of savages.
Yeah. We were a bunch of savages just using one long piece of paper.
Long piece, and it was usually animal.
Yeah.
Animal. It was even like plant paper. It was
Yeah.
made from. Paper used to be really expensive to make.
Yes.
Barbarian,
Yes.
like Romans and stuff like that.
We used to have to make it out of animals. We didn't have cotton back then. That technology.
Well, we didn't. We could have done it. I mean, the Egyptians kind of did it, and the Chinese actually perfected it, and like maybe we actually using plants to make paper instead of killing an animal.
And also, back then, a lot of the world, whenever they had things like textile or any type of rare technology or any type of development, they will keep it to themselves. They will not let foreigners take their information and spread it around the world. They want to keep it centralized.
Well, you're lucky if you can get to a town, you know?
Exactly, because you have control over your product, which makes it more valuable, because businesses don't want to give their products away, just like copyright. In the modern day, they don't want everybody jumping on something that seems to be popular.
Yeah,
They want to hold control over it and make profit of it for as long as legally they can, before everybody else adapts the same technology and it gets put into
which kind of like reminds me of
normalized.
Ninja Scroll, because like one of the subplots they mentioned it, and it's kind of like what the whole thing is about to some extent is all this gold is going to Spain to buy guns. Like that's the reason they're getting all this gold together. The people that lose it, I can't remember the name of their names, but you know what I'm talking about. Like it gets stolen from. That's what they're angry, because they were about to go buy a bunch of fucking guns with this gold, and these like 8 demons or whatever show up, and they want it now, you know, or at the end of the day that they end up wanting to take it. But I thought, because that's what you're saying, Mario. It's like technology and money and stuff, you know.
Yeah, and this whole thing is all about loss of power, trying to regain power through any means possible, selling your soul to the devil to regain your clan's rights back to rule. Because the clan that is ordering the devils around, they want to go back to ruling the country. So they made a deal with the devil to obtain ultimate power.
There is a reclaiming of a better stature, basically. And they did a deal with the devil by getting involved with Gemma and these devils, and the guy paid for it. You know?
I mean, it's basically like a mafia movie.
Yes.
I mean, like, this is like Godfather crossed over with like Fistful of Dollars. Yeah. Fistful of Godfathers is what they should have named this movie.
Yeah. The thing about making a deal with the devil is that the devil will always turn its back on you and turn what you want against you.
Well, there's always a price to pay.
Yeah. And the devil only is a deceiver. He will only lure you and turn everything on you in the end. So as we saw, the clan that wants to go back to power, that hired the devils, they get slaughtered, they get betrayed.
Well, actually, only the Shogun of the Dark is the one that got killed, because before Gemma could go ahead and start commanding those men, he got killed. So the only real peril that those guys suffered was having to jump ship when the ship was on fire, basically.
Yeah. But the point is that the clan is represented by the leaders. So if the leaders is taken out, because the army is nothing but a pawn. It's an extension of the power of the leader of the clan. So if you take out the leader, it's like killing the clan, because now the soldiers are now, like you mentioned, are now part of the devil's army.
Yeah. Well, I don't think
they call him the Dark Shogun, right?
Yes, the Dark Shogun.
Well, it's a lateral move, actually, because the Shogun of the Dark wanted to overthrow the government, or at least cause a civil war. And then if Gemma had his way, they would have done the same thing. But he said he was going to rule Japan from the shadows. So it was more of an underground thing. But either way, it was overthrowing the government and turning Japan into a turmoil. So
yeah,
either way, you know.
And it's pretty brilliant how having a shadow government ruling the actual country, putting in place fake rulers, pretty much to make everybody believe that the actual rulers are making all the rules, while in actuality there's a shadow government making all the decisions. It almost reflects our modern day view of the government, how a lot of people are very conspiratorial and believe that our government is not actually in control, but they're only publicity stunts to push a narrative by whoever might be actually in charge. Whether that being reality or not, nobody knows. Nobody can prove it, and maybe one day when it is proven, it's going to be far in the history, because right now it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So we can only speculate and make up stories. And the thing about conspiracy theories is that anybody can make up a story, push it, and by word of mouth, it spreads. And now nobody knows if there's any truth to any conspiratorial story, because it's passed from one person to the other one, passed by YouTubers and all the social medias. There's no actual source to go back and verify anything anymore.
Yeah.
So anybody can make up anything nowadays, which is the dangerous part of conspiracies. The only the conspiracies that have been proven, luckily, there's historical evidence that is eventually declassified by the people that actually wrote and commanded these things. That's the only time conspiracy theories have come to fruition and became true, because they released it, they allowed the public to see the actual records.
Yeah, well, the problem with that stuff is it tends to happen decades later. So it's like, what's the, and then you're lucky if some of that stuff's not redacted.
Yes, and it's done by design to protect all the people that are alive during that time period, and also maybe their sons or daughters that came after them, protect them as well. So that way, the only thing to blame is a government, but the government is all composed with new people, with new agendas, new morals, new politics to push. So it's hard to put blame on a new face, a new ideology of the past, which was radically different.
Yeah. All right, you guys want to end it here?
Yeah, I think we're. Let's see how far. Yeah, we're about maybe 60 minutes in.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right, that's good, man. Okay, then awesome. I guess. Okay, so Mario, I guess you could take us out.
All right, yes.
Go for it.
And the name of our podcast is EMP Reviews.
Okay, all right, everybody. Right. We'll see you at the next movie.
All right, take care. And one more thing, let's do an outro with our names. My name is Mario.
I'm Ernest.
That was Ernest, and this is Pascal.